Your 20s aren't what you think they are. That perfectly filtered path you see others taking, it's a highlight reel, not reality. Forget the rigid timeline. The greatest freedom you have right now is realizing nobody has it all figured out. This decade isn't about checking boxes. It's about running an identity lab and building a foundation that pays off for the next 50 years. Your 20s. Just the word probably conjures up a perfect, shimmering image. The flawless career ascent, the Pinterest-worthy apartment, the partner who is also your best friend, and maybe a cute dog, all wrapped up neatly by the time you hit 29. It's that perfectly filtered path you see others taking. But here's the truth we all forget. It's a highlight reel, not reality. Today, we're cutting through the noise and sharing what actually matters in this decade. Not what society desperately tries to convince you should matter. Let's start with the greatest, most profound freedom of your 20s. The freedom you probably haven't claimed yet. It isn't having it all figured out. It's realizing deep down in your bones that nobody does. We're constantly fed this exhausting narrative that success in your 20s means checking certain, highly specific boxes by a rigid timeline. We know the list by heart, don't we? Graduate by 22, score a solid career by 23, find the relationship by 25, buy the first house by 28, start thinking about kids by 30. It's a relentless, culturally enforced to-do list. But take a deep breath and look behind those polished social media posts and the stiff, overly confident pronouncements from that one friend. Here's what's actually happening in the back rooms of most people's lives. They are experimenting, failing spectacularly, starting over from scratch, and feeling exactly like you do. Unquestionably, perfectly uncertain. This messiness, this glorious ambiguity isn't a bug in the system. It is, in fact, the entire point. Think about the difference between those who truly thrive in their 20s and those who just barely survive them. The difference isn't having a flawless, 5-year, color-coded plan. It's the simple but terrifying act of embracing the uncertainty. It's the willingness to not know, to look at a blank calendar, and to say, let's see what happens next, instead of panicking. I've had the privilege of speaking with hundreds of people now in their 30s, 40s, and beyond, looking back at this decade, and I always ask them the same question. What do you wish you'd known? Not a single one has ever said, I wish I'd had my life more figured out. Instead, their wisdom is unanimous. They wish they'd worried less, experimented more freely, and truly understood that the winding, messy, inefficient path isn't a detour. It is the one and only path. Think of your 20s less like the final high-stakes performance and more like the essential, chaotic dress rehearsal, where mistakes are not only expected but are the most valuable form of currency. So, the very first, most freeing thing that actually matters in your 20s is this: unlearning the myth that you should have it all figured out. This single powerful mindset shift will instantly free you to explore without the crushing weight of perfectionism. It liberates you to experiment with jobs, locations, and even versions of yourself. When you realize that this isn't going according to plan isn't a failure state, but is literally just the plan, you can breathe and move with purpose. We are all constantly scrolling through these perfectly curated, airbrushed lives, silently wondering why ours feels so incredibly unscripted. It's a universal feeling. The secret club of 20-somethings includes everyone. The brilliant lawyer, the budding artist, the entrepreneur. All silently panicking about their life choices while nodding confidently in public. You are absolutely, wonderfully, not alone in this beautiful chaos. And then there's comparison. The fastest, most efficient way to steal your own joy. We expect ourselves to have our entire future mapped out, when half of us are still checking Google to make sure we're loading the dishwasher correctly. It's time to retire the idea that your 20s are about comparison and competition, and embrace the fact that they are instead your own personal identity laboratory. That's where the real work begins. We just established that your 20s aren't the final performance. They're the chaotic, essential dress rehearsal. Now, let's talk about the stage itself. Your 20s are the ultimate identity laboratory. There is no other decade in your life that grants you this much permission, this much glorious freedom, to experiment with who you are, and crucially, who you might become. And contrary to popular belief, the one that insists you must be consistent. You should be running lots and lots of experiments. The truth is, self-discovery isn't a one-and-done event. some lightning strike that happens to you once and then you're done. It's an active, ongoing, fluid process. And your 20s. They are the prime time for this kind of rigorous, messy exploration. Think about the unique sweet spot you're in. You are finally independent enough to make your own big choices, yet still flexible enough that those choices don't yet define your entire life's trajectory. If you switch gears now, it's called growth. If you do it in your 40s, it's often called a crisis. Take advantage of the window. The goal here isn't to find your one true self. That's a myth designed to paralyze you. The real goal is to discover the multiple, fascinating versions of yourself that could exist. Every new city, every odd job, every deep conversation, every relationship. It all reveals different facets of who you are and what you value. And listen closely to this. Changing your mind isn't a character flaw, no matter what social media or your well-meaning traditional aunt suggests. Changing your mind is growth. Instead of asking the paralyzing question, what should I do with my life? Which is too vast and overwhelming, try asking something smaller, more actionable, and much more fun. What can I try next? Maybe next is a ceramics class that connects you to a tactile creativity you didn't know you possessed. Maybe it's traveling solo to a city where being completely anonymous allows you to reinvent your personality temporarily. Perhaps it's working in a totally unrelated industry for 6 months simply because it challenges your deepest assumptions about what matters to you in a job. Each experiment isn't a commitment to a life sentence, it's a data point. You aren't gathering final answers, but incredibly valuable clues about the person in the mirror. So, what actually matters in this chapter of your 20s? It's creating enough self-knowledge to make choices that truly align with who you actually are, not the person you think you should be. The person who tries 10 different paths, who shifts careers twice, and moves cities 3 times, gathers exponentially more useful self-knowledge than the one who stays locked onto a single path out of pure fear or a sense of crushing obligation. We all know that person. The one who's been in the same job since college and secretly spends their nights wondering what else might have been possible. Don't let that become your defining story. The most engaging, interesting people in any room are almost always those who have taken the unconventional paths, who've sampled multiple careers or lived in several different places. That curiosity creates depth. Ever sat awake at 3 a.m. wondering, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? That question is not a sign of instability. It is valuable data that deserves deep exploration, not avoidance. Yet, we spend more time researching which streaming show to binge next than we do researching potential career paths. And then we wonder why we end up in jobs that make us feel like we're playing a secondary character in someone else's script. Your 20s give you the permission to step off the expected stage and run your own lab. Embrace the trials, celebrate the failures, and know that every time you change your mind, you're just refining your beautiful, ever-evolving identity. You just heard that your 20s are the identity lab, where you need to start experimenting and gathering data about yourself. But how do you turn those experiments into consistent, compounding change? If you're tired of running in circles and ready to move from guessing to intentional action, I've created a roadmap for you. My new ebook, 30 Days to a Better You, gives you the actionable, step-by-step framework to refine your habits, build your foundations, and start seeing real compound growth in your life. All in just 1 month. Stop wondering and start building your future today. Find the link below to grab your copy and claim your intentional 20s. Let's drop a truth bomb that can feel hard but is incredibly liberating. Not all relationships deserve equal investment. Your 20s are the decade when you learn the tough, essential, and ultimately freeing lesson that relationship quality trumps quantity every single time. Think back to your teens. Friendships often form through sheer proximity. You were friends with the people in the same homeroom, on the same sports team, or living in the same neighborhood. These were connections of convenience. But your 20s introduce an entirely new paradigm: intentional connection. This decade is your moment to discover the profound difference between a convenience connection, someone you see because you happen to be in the same place, and a true soul connection, the person who sees you, challenges you, and helps you grow. You start figuring out who truly energizes you versus those who consistently drain your reserves. You learn to spot the friends who genuinely celebrate your growth versus those who subtly prefer that you don't change because your evolution makes them uncomfortable. And most importantly, you learn that maintaining high-quality relationships requires active, deliberate investment. They don't just happen or maintain themselves through inertia. Like any valuable long-term investment, relationships have compound returns over time, but only if you're investing your energy wisely and into the right ones. Think of your relationships like a portfolio. Some connections might be high maintenance with frustratingly low returns, yielding mostly drama or anxiety. Others require minimal maintenance but yield incredible dividends of mutual support, growth, joy, and resilience. The question isn't, how can I possibly keep up with all these connections? That path leads only to exhaustion. The crucial self-respecting question is, which connections are truly worth cultivating deeply? That friend who always leaves you feeling lighter, more focused, and better about yourself after talking. Investment. That group or partner that leaves you emotionally exhausted, feeling small or draining your energy to constantly prop them up. Divestment time. Your energy, your time, and your emotional space are finite, non-renewable resources. You must allocate them to relationships that help both parties become better versions of themselves. What actually matters in your 20s isn't having the most impressive social circle or the longest list of party invites. It's building a genuine, rock-solid support system with mutual growth at its core. Here's where courage enters the equation. The courage to outgrow relationships that no longer serve you or align with your values creates the necessary space for connections that will sustain you through life's inevitable challenges. Quality connections aren't just a nice-to-have accessory. They are absolutely essential to your well-being, your happiness, and your resilience. We've all been there, staying in a friendship or romantic relationship far past its natural expiration date, clinging to the hope that things will magically revert to the way they once were. The deep, visceral relief that comes from finally letting go of what no longer fits is unmatched. Scientific research consistently backs this up. Strong social connections are better predictors of happiness and longevity than measures like money, professional status, or even physical health alone. Remember scrolling through your contacts and realizing you haven't spoken to half of these people in years? That's not a failure. That's the natural, healthy evolution of your relationship garden. We'll spend hours debating whether to keep a $30 shirt we never wear, but we hesitate, almost paralyzingly, to evaluate whether we should keep relationships that actively make us miserable. Our relationship closets are often overflowing with items we should have donated years ago. Your 20s are the time to learn this essential lesson. Be ruthless with your time, gentle with your heart, and intentional with your investment. Cultivate the deep, reciprocal connections that will be your true wealth in the decades to come. Let's move on to the practical magic of your 20s. The kind of magic that doesn't require luck, just consistency. We need to talk about future-proofing because the small, seemingly insignificant habits you form right now will either become your greatest ally or your persistent nemesis for decades to come. Your bank account in your 20s might feel small, maybe even laughably so, but your financial and health decisions during this time are disproportionately powerful. Most of us weren't taught financial literacy in school, yet it's one of the most consequential skills in adulthood. Your 20s are the perfect time to build this foundation. Not because you have vast amounts of money, but because you possess the most powerful force in finance, time. The magic lies in the compound effect. The idea that small, consistent actions now create massive, exponential results later. It's not about getting rich quick or impressing people with what you buy. It's about creating future freedom and options for yourself. The goal here isn't deprivation, it's intentionality. It means aligning your spending with what actually brings you lasting value rather than fleeting, momentary satisfaction. Consider the profound power of early investing. If you invest, say, $200 monthly starting at age 25, by 65 you could have around $650,000 at an 8% average return. Wait just 10 years, until age 35 to start, and that final number drops to only about $295,000. That decade difference is worth over $350,000. The point isn't to never enjoy your money now. It's to understand that every dollar has potential energy. Creating simple systems, like setting up automatic transfers to a savings or investment account before you can spend the money, completely bypasses the need for constant willpower. Your 20s are for learning the difference between assets that grow in value and liabilities that silently drain your resources. What actually matters isn't how much you earn in your 20s. It's the money mindset you develop. Financial freedom isn't about massive wealth. It's about options. The ability to make life decisions based on what fulfills you rather than simply what pays the bills. The greatest investment isn't in a stock or a crypto coin. It's in your own financial education. Your body in your 20s is often like a brand new, reliable car that keeps running perfectly despite terrible maintenance. But don't be fooled. You are not invincible. You're just benefiting from powerful factory settings that sadly won't last forever. Your 20s are the decade when you establish the health baseline you'll return to for the next several decades. Both physical and mental health habits formed now become your default programming, and that programming gets exponentially harder to rewrite with each passing year. The goal is intentional investment in your most valuable asset, your health. While the consequences of poor habits might not show up right now, they are silently accumulating behind the scenes. Conversely, good habits are building a deep well of resilience and capacity you'll draw on for the rest of your life. Your future self is either thanking you for what you do today or wishing you had started sooner. Regular movement, adequate sleep, stress management, and proper nutrition aren't just about looking a certain way. They are fundamental inputs to your energy, your mood, your cognitive function, and disease prevention. Mental health deserves equal priority. Learning how to recognize and process emotions, set healthy boundaries, and seek help when needed are high-value life skills, not weaknesses. Starting a simple, 5-minute daily mindfulness practice in your 20s could literally add years of mental clarity to your life. What actually matters isn't achieving some idealized body or never feeling stressed. It's building a foundation of health literacy and sustainable, consistent habits. The relationship you develop with your body and mind in your 20s will be one of your longest and most important relationships in life. Treat it with the care and attention it deserves. Consistency of imperfect action beats sporadic perfection every single time. By focusing on small, daily habits in finance and health, you're not just surviving your 20s, you're future-proofing the rest of your life. We've navigated the pitfalls of the highlight reel, experimented in the identity lab, intentionally pruned our relationship portfolio, and begun future-proofing with compound interest. Now, let's zoom out and look at the final, most crucial frame of your 20s, the long game. Your 20s are not the finish line. They are powerfully and essentially the starting blocks. And here is the secret of the most fulfilled people. They are not the ones who won their 20s. They are the ones who deliberately used this decade to set up the long game. In a culture obsessed with immediate, instant results, the rapid promotion, the viral success, the overnight transformation. Playing the long game is both a radical act and an incredibly rewarding strategy. Your 20s are purely about building the foundation and the infrastructure for a fulfilling life journey, not just chasing quick wins or temporary validation. This requires a shift in perspective because some of your most important investments right now won't pay off immediately, or maybe even for another 10 years. Think about the time you spend on education that expands your way of thinking, even if it doesn't lead to an immediate job title. Relationships that challenge you to grow, even if they sometimes feel uncomfortable. Career moves that build fundamental capabilities and skills, rather than just optimizing your resume for status. These choices often seem counterintuitive when everyone else is hyper-focused on immediate visible rewards. They look like detours or slowing down. But these choices create compounding advantages over time. The irony is this: those who focus exclusively on the short-term wins often find themselves stuck in the exact same spot years later, having peaked too early. Meanwhile, those who played the long game have built a quiet, steady momentum that eventually propels them forward with increasing returns. What begins as a small advantage today, like reading a challenging book or learning a complex new skill, becomes the defining advantage of tomorrow. What's rarely discussed is that playing the long game requires emotional resilience. You must make peace with the discomfort of delayed gratification. You need to be comfortable with the uncertainty of paths less traveled. It means trusting your own deep judgment, even when conventional wisdom pushes you toward quick results and easily visible achievements. The long game doesn't just apply to your career or finances. It applies equally to your health, your relationships, and your personal growth. Every area of life rewards those who can look beyond momentary convenience toward enduring, sustained fulfillment. Your 20s are the perfect time to ask yourself this foundational question. Am I making decisions that will expand or limit my future possibilities? The choices that feel momentarily uncomfortable right now. Saying no to a fun night out to work on a skill, leaving a comfortable but unfulfilling job, having a difficult but necessary conversation, are the ones that consistently create the most freedom and fulfillment later. You are not just living for today. Your future self is silently counting on you to make choices today that they will enthusiastically thank you for tomorrow. True adulthood doesn't arrive at a specific age on your birth certificate. It emerges gradually, through countless small decisions to take ownership, embrace the uncertainty, and trust that the unglamorous daily disciplines will eventually compound into a remarkable life. The career, the family, the health, the wisdom you will possess at 40 or 50 is being built right now in your 20s, brick by intentional brick. Your job is to make sure those bricks are sturdy. You're building a launch pad, not a finish line. Start the countdown.